saw this opportunity to kind of build. We could have built anything, right? We could have built things around safety, which there is a very large company called Detect that's doing that now. We could have built things around efficiency, around data visibility. You know, there was so many things that could have been done, right? This was back in 2016, 17. So I was. My co-founders came from Zynga, so the four of us, three of us were ex-Zynga, and then one person was from Ecolab, right? So he had the expertise on the customer segment we were focusing on. The rest of us just wanted to start with the Zynga people, right? So we wanted to do something that also had some kind of positive social or environmental impact, right? So we chose environment, right? So we built a product to essentially, you know, somebody was talking about energy usage earlier. So we built a product to reduce these factories' energy and water footprint, right? And then we started going and talking to these potential customers, right? Back in 2017, nobody cared about this stuff, right? Nobody cared about carbon footprint and water footprint. They didn't care. So we quickly pivoted to talking about dollars and cents, EPS, things like that. Then they're like, okay, now we get it. And that's how we started building the business. And so 5 years on, here we are. ITC is India's largest packaging producer as well, right? So they buy wood chips from farmers, they convert that to pulp, and then the pulp becomes packaging. So all the fruity containers, any kind of liquid packaging that you see in India, Tetra Pak, what is called Tetra Pak, is actually ITC, right? Tetra Pak buys from ITC, and Unilever gets their packaging from ITC, and so on and so forth. So what they would do is they would grab like the sample of their, you know, what they're making the pulp, right? And they would walk it over to an on-site lab. So they all have captive laboratory facilities, right? They would do a bunch of measurements with benchtop instruments, right? Manually. And then a human subject matter expert would look at this data, and then they would determine, hey, do I need to change something in my process, right? This whole loop is what we have automated with our product. Our product is called ELIXA, E-L-I-X-A, Electronic Live Information Exchange and Analysis. And we named ELIXA before Alexa became popular. Actually, Amazon sued us when we filed for a trademark. Amazon said, no, right? Finally, they agreed that we can use this in the industrial space as long as we don't use Alexa in the consumer space. So that's what the product does. We just automated that loop, and it's been a huge hit. There are many things we are still solving, right? But a lot of things have worked. Right? That's what we do in a nutshell.
So as you guys might be aware that the theme of this event is customer retention as growth strategy. So we are going to be talking a lot about that today, and I think so. Can we jump into that? Okay. So let's start from where we realize that we want to focus on retention as a growth strategy, and which were the focus areas that you ensure as a founder that the company should be focusing on.
So, by the way, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about is not things that we knew 5 years back, okay? Are things that we've made tons of mistakes and learned, right? So it's things that we know now, right? So hopefully, you know, some of you won't have to repeat those mistakes. Right? So for me, product market. So I'll be using some SaaS jargon. That's fine. Like everybody is familiar with. If anything that I'm saying you don't get, you know, just explain. All right. So PMF, right? Like every VC of PMF. The most abused phrase in the SaaS world. So product market fit, right? You know, what does it mean, right? So before you even think about product market fit, right? Are you building something? Do you have a problem product fit, right? So that's the first. And even before that, you know, somebody's talking about personas, right? So user personas. So do you truly have empathy for your customer, right? That's the first principle, right? Yeah, and then how do you build? So the first question to ask yourself is, you know, this user persona or this customer that I'm building this for, or this problem that I'm solving for, do I have real empathy for that user? In our case, the user is the production supervisor in the plant, right? Or is an engineering manager of a facility. So like data centers are our customers. Taj, like the 5-star hotels. So they have like engineering departments, and those guys are customers, right? So there's this engineer who sits in the basement of this 5-star hotel next to the boiler, he's like sweating. Nobody's thinking about the guy, right? So that's the person that I'm thinking about, and their problems is what I'm thinking about, and that's what keeps me up at night, right? I think about what keeps them up at night, and that's what keeps me up at night. So do you have real empathy for the customer, right? Can you put yourself in their shoes? Some of you might have walked in those shoes previously, right? That gives you a heads up, that gives you an advantage. But having real empathy and then driving that through your organization's DNA, especially with the co-founders, and also with the investors, right? I was talking to Saurabh. One of the things that I insist investors after the first call is, can you come with me to a customer? Because our customers are not in DLF, Gurgaon or any place like that, right? They are in Lal Kuwa, Uttarakhand, right? Balasore, Orissa, Amlai, I don't even know which state, Chhattisgarh or Madhya Pradesh, Amlai, Madhya Pradesh. That's where our customers are, right? So if they are not willing to take a day or maybe a couple of days to come see their customer, they definitely don't have empathy for the people that I have empathy for, right? I don't want that investor. I don't want money from that investor, right? So empathy, drive it into the DNA of your team, especially the co-founding team, and then distributing culture in an organization is super hard, right? I mean, we haven't solved for it ourselves, right? Product distribution is easier than culture distribution. But how do you drive? In fact, right now we have this, we do OKRs, right? So we used to do like quarterly, and now we do once every 6 months. So this cycle, right? This cycle ends in March. Our theme for our OKRs is make customers delighted again, right? Because somewhere along the way we kind of lost that, right? So to kind of drive that again with the team, so we have like make customers delighted again, right? So what does that mean? When a customer calls the support number, does somebody actually answer the phone, right? That's number one. If somebody actually answers the phone, your NPS immediately goes up by 5 points, or maybe 10 points or 20 points, right? NPS, everybody familiar with Net Promoter Score? I can't remember how it's done. If somebody actually answers the phone, your NPS score goes up. If that person is really listening to the customer's problem, NPS score goes up. If they're trying to solve the problem, it goes up even further. If you actually solve the problems, you're God, right? So those kinds of things, right?
I think you should explain a little more about how did you explore retention should be our focus. Net revenue retention, everybody familiar with that? Net revenue? So I'll just quickly explain. So if you start with, say, $100 of MRR this month or this year or whatever, you expand, right? So you have 10 customers, $100 of MRR. Let's say you get, you're selling more features, or you're increasing your price, or you're selling a different product, you're signing a different contract. So you add new contracts with existing customers. So you add, let's say 20 more, right? So now you're at 120, but you lost one contract, so minus 10. So 100 plus 20 minus 10, so you're at 110. So your net revenue retention is 110, irrespective of how many new logos, new customers you've added, right? So that's net revenue retention. So basically, are you expanding off of your current customers faster than you're losing customers, right? So if you're 100 or better, you're damn good. So 100's a damn good solid green, right?
damn good SaaS metric for net revenue retention. Our net revenue retention is over 140, which means we are expanding. Two reasons for that. Half of our growth comes from expansion, right? Half of it comes from new logos, but half of it comes from expansion from existing logos. But our churn is also very low, right? So because of churn being low plus a lot of expansion coming, our net revenue retention is high. So that's the metric, right?
Yeah, the NRR typically how much? It must be over a time frame, right? The NRR over 6 months or 1 year or 2 years.
It doesn't matter, right? Because your rate of churn and your rate of expansion, it doesn't matter. You can use any. So we measure both trailing 12 months and we measure every month, right? Because you want to know what happened last month, right? And you want to see that trend. But trailing 12 months makes more sense, right? But it doesn't matter. The time frame doesn't matter. You can do it over any time frame, right? Because the rate remains the same. If you just focus on that one metric, it solves for everything else, right? Because you're going to get new logos, right? Your existing customers are going to move to a new organization. They become new customers. There's going to be tons of word of mouth, right? If there are user ecosystems, if there are industrial conferences, things like that, right? So irrespective of how it happens, you're going to get tons of growth just by taking care of your existing customers, right? And it doesn't matter what product, who's your user. I think this is universally applicable. That you take real good care of your current customers. You may or may not get new customers. I mean, you may or may not expand with them because not everybody is pushing new features, right? Or not everybody is asking for a higher price, or you're not launching new products. That's okay, right? Your churn becomes less, right? And you will invariably get growth by taking care of your existing customers. It's proven over and over again, right? So for us, it wasn't in our DNA, right? But customer empathy was always in our DNA, right? Which then translated to better retention, right? At one stage, I was telling VCs, this was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, right? So the first 3 years, we never lost a customer, zero churn. I mean, one reason is today we have about 100 customers, so we don't have thousands and millions of customers, right? Our contract, our ACVs are very high, right? About $150,000 per contract, and we have about 100 customers, 100 plus customers. So, 2 years back, I was telling investors, we have zero churn, and they all just loved it, right? I mean, since then we've lost a couple of customers, right? So churn is no longer zero, and it's very, very hard to keep churn at zero for an extended period of time. You have some churn because of whatever reason, right?
This takes me to my next question. So you just now mentioned that as we have scaled, we've realized that we are having churn now, right? So our retention strategies would also have changed accordingly when we have expanded across geographies, across industries. So how have we communicated it to the team, and how have we ensured that our retention is as per our growth now?
Yes, so we haven't solved it. There's org design type of stuff you need to do, there's customer segmentation, things that you need to do, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things that we are just starting to do, right? But one of the things that we did very early on was we built a customer success function, right? Even though we don't have a leader for customer success, right? So my co-founder was leading that function from early on. So we had a customer success function, I don't know, maybe second year, right? And that team has, we've invested in that team, right? So customer success team is doing nothing but post go live support, ensuring adoption is good, usage is good, ROI from usage is good, things like that, right? So we picked on early on that merchandising the value that we're creating back to the customer is extremely important. What I mean by that is, I don't know if you use Zomato or Google Pay. This last year for New Year's they set out this thing, right? Oh, you send you were one of the top 5 cheeseburger eaters in the country, things like that. Anybody saw that? Yeah, so that's sort of a way to merchandise it back, right? Or kind of those happy moments they're connecting back with you. Remember we had those happy times together type of thing, right? So similarly, we started merchandising the value that our product was creating for our customers back to them. Hey, remember, we do this for you. Don't forget us, right? Remember this, that type of thing. We haven't automated it, so we haven't scaled that part up yet. But that's part of what the customer success team does, right? So they remind the customer, say once a quarter, or typically it's once a quarter. We helped you create so much of an impact. We helped you avoid so much hours of downtime, things like that, right? So
maybe one question from my side, because you are serving industries. When you say that you do this reminder and everything, is that done in a kind of a online email format, or you go physically and have these conversations with them?
Yeah, so with ITC, we actually do a quarterly, it's a video conference, right? And their leadership team is there during those reviews. And basically it's us presenting this to them, right? But that's a unique one-off, right? Typically it's just an email that goes from the customer success manager who takes care of that customer, right? And again, we don't do it for all segments of customers, right? So, like I said, we have a couple of customers that are $1 million plus ARR. We have lots of customers that are 100K plus ARR, and then we have quite a few customers who are below 100K per ARR, right? So we're starting to segment those customers out. We haven't, I personally hate segmenting customers. I want to give the same product and service to every customer. But we at some point we have to do it, and so things like this, right? So the reports go out to just the larger customers, and they go out once in a quarter typically, right? So some are once in a month because the customer themselves are like, hey, can you send me this, but more frequently, right? Then there are some automated things that go out as well, right? We're trying to build like AI tools to completely automate that. See, because our product is a little bit like, fill it, shut it, forget it type of product, right? It's very easy to kind of, once there's an itch, you put the band-aid and the itch is solved, then you tend to forget, right? So our product is like that, so we need to remind the customer, right? Otherwise it's very easy for them to forget over time that, hey, I used to have this problem sometime back, that got solved by Haber, right? So we need to do that, right?
Sure. So how about we share if we have faced any challenges in achieving the retention that we have, or maybe a difficult scenario with a specific customer you want to share?
So we've lost customers altogether, but we've also lost contracts within a customer, right? So there's this one particular customer, we lost a big contract because part of, sometimes in our contract we commit to certain KPIs, right? Uptime will be greater than 97%, right? Stuff like that. And if we don't hit the KPI, and sometimes we get very optimistic and aggressive about the KPIs, right? And they don't get delivered, right? But 99% of the time when the KPIs don't get delivered, it's not a problem. Customers are like, oh, we're still happy, right? You know, you deliver 95%, we're happy, right? But there was this one instant, but we missed the KPI by a lot, right? So the customer was like, hey, you committed to this KPI, you didn't hit it, contract is over, right? So they, use the clause in the contract to exit. So typically we try to sign multi-year contracts, right? Most of them are annual, but some of the ITC ones are like 3-year contracts, right? So one of our oldest contracts with ITC, it was 3 years, and we just renewed it for another 3 years. So we lost a large contract with this customer, but we still had something left, right? We had another contract, a smaller one left there. But then since then, like call it 6-9 months later, we won another big contract, a different one, but we won a big contract. So, I won't take credit for it because I was not personally involved, but the team, continued to deliver, even though the size of the revenue we were making off of this customer significantly come down, right? I'm sure we were doing the right thing and giving top-notch support and whatnot to this customer. So we expanded, right? Right now we have a larger ARR with that customer than what we lost before, right? So, and I recently visited a customer there in Andhra Pradesh, right? I visited that customer and the guy who runs, they call the unit head, right? So this is like a massive complex of many small plants within a larger plant. So the guy who runs the entire thing, he was like blasting me, right? He was like, oh, year and a half back, you guys said this, did this. You were not even picking up my phone calls. That's a, somebody calls the support line and answer the phone. So he was blasting me, and then he switched gears and was like, okay, but since then, you guys have remediated, you guys done this, done that, done that. So the conversation went on for about almost 90 minutes. It started out like it was a bloodbath, right? And then it turned super positive, not because of anything I did, but because of his experience with us, right? And then he was like, okay, tell me what else can you guys do for us, right? And he was somebody, this is not somebody I'd met before, and he really understood, and he was the type of person who had real empathy for his customers, right? He was like, hey, I have to think about my customer quality, this, that, blah, 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 and you guys didn't come through for us last time, but now, you've improved, you can still do better, but, so we kind of recovered, right? So never give up, even if you lose a customer. Don't lose a customer on bad terms. Never do that, right? Ever. And even if you lose a customer, or they slash from gold to silver or whatever, right? Keep at it, because they will come back. They can come back, and they can become an even bigger customer. Because everybody's changing, everyone's evolving, right? It's not just us, we are innovating and evolving, they're also evolving. So things can change, and so whether you lose a customer, stay in touch with them. So we have, we use HubSpot as to track our opportunity funnel. So one of the things is, if we send a proposal to a customer, if you don't close it in 90 days, then we put it back into like the hold category, right? And if we lose a customer, we put it back in the hold category. If we don't win a customer, we put it back in the hold category. And that hold category gets looked at in an active fashion. Recently I haven't had time to look at it, but we look at it, right? That has to be looked at, because there could be some real potential gold mines in there, right? So don't forget about that group, right? That you either lost, or who said no to you, or who you lost to a competitor. Don't forget about that group, right? That still exists. Those could be potential gold mines.
I think that was really interesting. So we have a question there. Can we share the mic?
You spoke about customer churn, losing customer. We are all talking about retaining a customer, but did you have any instance where you thought it was best that we lost this customer, this was not a good fit? And did you change anything in your process next time, getting a new customer, we should take care of this thing that we should not get into such a customer? Was there anything like that?
Not here, she's in the US. So she's extremely conservative, so we are going to balance each other out, right? So my DNA is I would never say no to any potential customer or revenue opportunity. That's how my brain works. But Priya is very conservative, right? So she's built like a qualification process. So the opportunity funnel goes through a qualification process, starts with, is there a problem product fit, right? And then is this the right type of customer? And we go through many things, right? So Priya's built that. So we, I don't know what the metrics are, but I think we end up only qualifying 2/3 of the opportunity. So 1/3 of the opportunity gets kind of, call it disqualified, right? For various reasons. So there are types, potential customers that we decide not to pursue, right? Personally, I hate doing that, right? I think it makes sense for business, right? Because there are certain customers that your acquisition costs are going to be super high, your cost to support and service are going to be super high. They might, if you do like your Pareto analysis, they might generate like most of your issue tickets and whatnot, and so there are potential problem customers or just. But I'm a firm believer that every customer can get qualified, right? So, but we do go through like a qualification process, and we say, okay, these. So sometimes it might be pure geography, right? So we get a lot of our growth is kind of outbound, right? So our selling process is outbound. Right now, I would say about 60-70% is outbound, and about 30-40% is inbound, right? So we get inbound from other countries as well, right? So markets that we are not in, and especially we've gotten inbound from Russia, from Iran, right? And then we had to make the decision because we have our investors are Accel and so on, right? So we had to make a decision not to get a pursue by just saying that hey, we're not localized for your market, right? So. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a question.
Yeah. So this is market is currently primarily India, but my question is that what differentiation in retention strategies you have found like work, especially in Indian market with this big institution?
Sure. So almost 80% of our customers and revenue is India. We have customers in the near India markets, so Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So I was actually in Bangladesh for a whole week. So don't listen to anything you're hearing about Bangladesh. It's an awesome market, right? It is the next market. I think everybody, including VCs, are like missing the boat on Bangladesh. It's an awesome market. We are just going to double down. Right? My first time in Bangladesh, and people been saying all kinds of, they don't have US dollars, blah blah blah. It's all temporary. The energy in Bangladesh is amazing, right? So we have customers in near India markets. We have lots of customers in Middle East. So especially United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and the neighboring Emirates. We have one customer in Oman, one in Qatar, and 2 customers in Saudi Arabia. We have some customers in East Africa, so that's Kenya, Uganda. And now we are pursuing the North America, which is why Priya is in the US right now. And your question was how is it? See, culturally there's a lot of difference, right? Especially India has a lot of information silos. I don't know why we are that way culturally. I don't get it. So you go to any one of these large enterprises, right? You see like information silos, right? what this team knows, this other team will not know. What this team knows, this other team will not know. That mostly doesn't exist, right? In Middle East, it doesn't exist in Africa, North America. So most of my experience is in North America, so I understand that market really well. The information silos typically don't exist in those markets, right? And a lot of times it's the same Indians who are running things there, but suddenly the information silos kind of disappear. But in India, I've noticed there's a lot of information silos. So so it becomes more difficult, right, for us. Because our customer is not just ITC, right? It is the factory manager at ITC, it is the ship supervisor at ITC, it is the quality manager at ITC. So all these people are our customers, right? Now, do they all have the same information, right, that we have, right? Or are there like information silos, right? So that makes things a bit difficult, right? I've noticed that, I just went to ITC last month, right? And just talking to people, I could just immediately sense that, there was deep information silos there, right, about our product within their organization, right? I'm not talking about opinions. Generally, everybody had a very positive opinion, but there were things that the other person was not aware about, right? Like, important things. So that definitely creates. But that is part of what we are solving as well, right? So this data transparency and things like that. But like that customer success report I was talking about, right? Like that information, did they already know that, or are they seeing that end of the quarter that when we send them out, right? A lot of times what happens is when we send them out is that they are finding out. A lot of people are finding out, right? Somebody within the customer knows about it, but these other people don't, right? The quality manager knows, but the production supervisor doesn't. That type of situation, right? So yeah, that definitely makes it more challenging to expand within the customer. This whole merchandising back of value, right? And do they really know on a runtime all the things that are happening, right?
One more little different question. Do you see more collection challenges in India?
Oh yeah. So every year we end up sending out one legal notice, right? I hate doing that, but even though we go through this qualification process and all that, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Collecting.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely, as a startup, we, we're very liberal with our terms, right, at the beginning. Now we are like everything advanced, or most of it advanced, that type of stuff, right? So in the early days we were giving credit, and once you give credit, it's very hard to take it back. So there have been some, right? So especially if a customer says net 30, what they mean is net 60, right? If they say net 60, what they mean is net 90 maybe. So the money comes in, right? It gets delayed a little bit in some cases. Like I said, once in a year we have the situation where money does not even come in and we need to send a legal notice, right? And that could be because of their financial situation, right? So we've had customers who've gone through a distress, right? And really there's not much you can do there. But the lesson is, get your money up front, right? There are those pressures of a startup. You gotta acquire customers, you gotta somehow close the deal, right? But yeah, so I would put too much money out there on the table. It becomes hard over time.
Thank you.
Yes. I think observing the potential downside.
Yeah. So one thing is we built, Ashutosh has actually built a tool called Haber Pulse, right? So we log in all the issues and they get labeled as, how critical they are, what the impact they can create. So I personally look at that, so I look at red and, so it's color coded, right? So it goes out every week. Right? I don't log in and I'm not looking at it in real time, I just look at the weekly report. and I look at the the burning issue, the top 2 segments of burning issues, right? And typically that fits in one page, so that's good news for us. And then it's right now it's still like brute force on that stuff. So we haven't scaled that part of. So we are tracking, right? Because we are tracking, we know. Because we know, we at least make an attempt to solve, right? And because we do that, if you don't do that, those are the ones that are going to churn, right? Now, like our churn has been like early on churn, right? During adoption phase. It's not like an after a year churning type stuff. When we go live, KPIs don't get hit, or sometimes it's a qualification issue in the sense that your customer doesn't actually want you, right? We thought that they want us, but actually they don't, right? They gave us the contract and everything, but they actually did not want us, and we did not read that well, right? So we've had that kind of churn. So all of our churn, or most of our churn, has happened super early on, right? Because once adoption happens, our product is extremely sticky. I hate comparing it to this, but sometimes I compare it to a pacemaker, right? So if you put it in, it's very hard to take it out. So that's how our product is. Once it's in the customer, it's super hard to take it out because the value that it creates like drops immediately, and it's measurable value. But still, we could churn, right? So that's why we track, right? And we label them. They are manually labeled right now, so we could maybe do some mislabeling, right? Potentially, correct, Ashutosh? Right. So we could, mislabel a burning issue as this is like yellow or blue or something.
Especially when volumes would go up.
Yeah. Yes. Right now, our entire report is like 4 pages, right? So at some stage it'll be, massive, right? So obviously we have to automate those things, right? So we have the other team that we have created in the last 12 months is what we call SRE, Systems Reliability Engineering. So there's a team that's constantly looking at this, monitoring 24/7. Even though we are an AI company and AI is monitoring everything, we have humans also looking at this stuff, right? So that's our defense strategy, right? In order to forecast churn, the only time I do that is when I build like a financial model for like investors, and just put like a small number there, right? It's not scientific at all, right? It's a number that we'll beat for sure, right? So just put some conservative number there. So yeah, we haven't come up with a science to forecast churn, right? But typically it is, less than 5%. 5% is your, goal, right? So keeping churn less than 5 is like impossible, right? Because there's going to be tons of mistakes. Like I said, maybe the customer never wanted you in the first place, right? You just ended up there. There could be many things, many reasons why you lose a customer. It may not be your product, or may not be your support, may not be anything that you have done. It just could be too much rates in jargon or something like that. If you lose a customer. Yes, so a lot of those metrics we just started building over the last 12 to 18 months, right? I would say we're not very mature with that yet, but yeah, we do track that, and we want those metrics to go up, right? So meaning, okay, when they get an alert, right? Are they even opening the alert, right? How many times they are looking at reports, right? We have a feature where they can sit anywhere in the world and kind of control their plant remotely, right? Are they using that feature, right? So yeah, we track these things and figure, so our product is also sort of, we've created a segment, right? Right, so we were like the first ones through the door in a way. Right, we've basically taken a lot of different products and squeezed them, so our product has multiple stacks within it, right? So So as we go through that process, your customer's not going to be able to tell you what they want, right? So we had to imagine what they may find useful, right? By figuring out, what their life looks like today, what keeps them up at night, those kinds of things, and then can you imagine what would address those issues, right? So some of them might just plain bomb, right? We might create a feature that is completely useless, right? So that happens. Sometimes we assume that, customers are definitely sophisticated, but they might be sophisticated in a different way, right? So they may not be sophisticated in our kind of way, so we assume that they are. And because of that, a feature does not work, right? So there could be many reasons. You want to talk a little bit about that? Or Ashutosh?
I think you pretty much said it. But that's right, because even we as product managers, when we talk to customers to understand the needs when we are building a product, we realize that the problem exists but they can't express it. So then we need to validate it with even more customers, because you are building the product for a lot of other customers, not just this one. It's not a service-based company, it's a product-based company. So we've realized that it becomes really necessary to talk to multiple people to get down to the problem, because the person on the other side can't express what's the problem. Also, they have that mindset of working in a particular way. They would like to accept products, but even they face challenges. How would they introduce products in their own company? So even in their company, we have to talk to multiple people, right? Like even we need to do that convincing that your multiple departments can use this product, and that's how they get onboarded. So it becomes easier for us to sell a product to such customers.
So is a good customer. I believe you are on the same philosophy. So we keep entertaining all the customers. But then there is always a question in a SaaS whether to build a custom requirement or not. But if you just extend it by this functionality or this feature or this integration, what we have in our stack, that would make a rosy picture, or the path must be much clearer for us. And now there is always a plan that we have. Our sprints are running, our plans for the quarter is already in place, what to put in, what to not. Of course, you have a good team with you, but people like us have a very small, frugal team. We are very much loaded with our own thoughts, our own dreams of having this feature and that feature, and something like this comes up. Many times the ticket size is very big. That might give us a good runway, that might be a big logo to add up in our client list, but then we have to compromise on our internal plans. So if you guys have faced anything like this, how did you solve? What is your approach to come up with such situations?
Or when a pilot project went on eternally, right? I mean, the customer would want to keep you in the pilot stage forever, right? Because they keep getting new requirements solved to them.
So it actually becomes a project then.
How do you solve that?
So I have a lot of interesting thoughts on this, but TJ is a queen of customization, so I'll let her speak about it.
Okay, so I'll talk about the product I have been working on. Since we had not visited a lot of customers when we were building Kaizen because of the pandemic, a lot of thoughts that we got was from the calls that we had with the customers, and of course sometimes we did realize what they expressed was not the way it is supposed to work. So we had to make a few changes also even after introducing the product, so we made those changes. Now when we took the product to a lot of customers, every customer asked us to make some changes, every customer. So then we realized that there were a few things which everybody wanted to change their own way. So we built a configuration module for that itself. Now when we go to a new customer, we don't have to make customization for those things anyways. Like they can do it on themselves, by themselves. So we had to build such small modules itself in the product which allows the customers to use it the way they want. Because we can't enforce them to use it when they have not been using any such product in the past. So this is what we realized, that the product has to be very flexible, something we had to keep in mind. We realized after introducing it in the market, but now whatever we build on, we think about it, that what all changes can come. Does it fit into the business models of multiple people, or should we build a precursor to this in the product where they set it the way they want to use it? So this has helped us now in all the new products that we have been working on. Also, when we get customization requests, we evaluate how much time would it take. For example, we really want the deal to be closed very soon, right? So we would pick up one thing which is very important for them and would customize it and introduce it as a new feature in the product itself. If it requires changes in our roadmap, we would do it if the customer is really important, let's say. But if we know that one thing is useful for multiple customers, we do take it up. Now other things we tell them, that let's say we close this, you use it for a month or two, you give us feedback, and accordingly we will release new versions for it. And those smaller changes we take up in every further sprint that we have to go through, and we keep on, I would say, updating their system. So the customer is also happy, they see the new features, they understand that we have taken the feedback and made changes accordingly. So this is something that has worked for us like till now, I would say.
You know, going back to your earlier thing, there's no such thing as a bad customer. When they're asking for customization, that itself is a good thing, right? Because most people just listen to your pitch and you won't get anything, right? No feedback, zero feedback, one-way conversation. So if they're asking for that means they've listened to your pitch, right? They're trying to understand, and they're actually giving you feedback, right? That's super. Now you're in a great spot. Now the next thing is, okay, now do you have the bandwidth? Do you want to, do all that stuff, right? But at least you're in a good spot if somebody's asking for customization.
Talking about Haber Pulse, did you evaluate any products in the market before deciding to build it proprietary?
We've always had that philosophy from the beginning. If it exists, we should not build it, right? So in general, we've only built stuff where there is nothing off the shelf, or what's there off the shelf nicely doesn't fit with our problem, or it could be ridiculously expensive also, right? For example, sensors, right? So we have our own proprietary sensor, and that's not, we are not a sensor company, right? We don't sell sensors, it's just part of our hardware. And the only reason we did that was, so if you compare industrial sensors versus sensors in the consumer space, right? Like our Apple Watch has really sophisticated sensors, right? And still the watch only costs a few $100, right? Industrial sensors, one sensor can cost more than a car, right? That's how expensive, and it's been like a chicken and egg situation. Because the sensors are expensive, not a lot of people can adopt them. Because there's no demand, the sensors are expensive, and they've been stuck in that cycle for a long time. So we saw this problem with, like, nobody else is solving it, right? Also, sensor manufacturers are not incentivized to give you all the data that comes from a sensor. They'll only give you one parameter, right? So even though you can get like a ton of information, right? So that's why. So in general, we don't build something unless, obviously we should be able to build, it can be built, right? That's the other thing, right?
One question here.
Yeah.
As you are into B2B space and you are talking with all enterprises and manufacturing units and all that, so what's the typical sales cycle and how you try to squeeze and reduce that? Because I understand it should be pretty big.
Yeah, so our, in the past, our sales cycles were super long. In one industry, we are a known brand now, which is the packaging segment, right? So that's where we have ITC, we have JK, we have Aditya Birla, Imami. We have every large enterprise customer in that segment with the exception of Trident. There are about 600 to 700 unique logos just in India in that segment, right? Like I said, we are already 100 plus, and 80% of that is India, right? There are another, the only part of the world that's growing is here, right? No other part of the world is growing right now. So any kind of new factory, it's happening in India, Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia, and even Southeast Asia, I would say that maybe Vietnam, Thailand, in some of those places, especially Vietnam, and Bangladesh. Those places are. So in that industry, our sales cycle is shortened quite a bit, and that's where we have like inbounds and whatnot, right? And like I said earlier, from the time we propose, if we don't close it in 90 days, we put it back on hold. It takes about 30 to 45 days to propose itself, right? And typically we close the deal in 60 days or less. So this is an industry where we are quite well entrenched, everybody knows us, right? So new industry verticals, so we are in the food and beverage processing space. So these are, in India it's mostly sugar, dairy, breweries, distilleries, Cokes, Pepsis, all that kind of stuff, right? So in that segment we have a couple of sugar customers, we have some brewery customers. We just closed EID Perry, which is part of the Murugappa group. So in the sugar space, they are the gold standard, they are the best. So now that we have them, it will be very easy to. So that's super important, right? That helps you crunch your sales. Once we picked up the ITC logo, our selling process became much easier, right? Because everybody's like, okay, I also want to be ITC, right? That's what they're aspiring to do. So yeah, the sales cycles in new industry verticals are long. Typically, your larger your contract value, higher your sales cycle, right? It's directly proportional. And the way to solve for that is selling it, because there's multiple stakeholders, right? You have to sell at corporate, you have to sell at the user department. There might be another influencer. So if you're if identifying all those simultaneously and then hitting those simultaneously, then you can crunch it. If you can create FOMO in some fashion, you can crunch it, right? So yeah, B2B sales is, you need patience, for sure. But the other thing is, do you have deals in your pipeline at different stages? Because these things are also contagious, right? Winning is contagious, losing also sometimes becomes contagious. So do you have deals at different stages? So there's something happening all the time, right? There's something you are able to celebrate about, right? That kind of thing. As opposed to everything is 80% of my deals are like proposed and I'm waiting for it to close. Right? That's probably not a good place to be. You should kind of manage that pipeline in a way where you have different things at different stages. Right? It keeps things interesting and things flowing. And
you talked about how your partner used to be, the co-founder used to head the customer success team, right? Early days. And I think when co-founders are heading a particular function, it's usually it runs very well because there's a deep level of ownership out there. But how did you go about transitioning this? What kind of an org did you build as the company went from one orbit to another? And then what kind of incentives did you keep in place so that customer success as a DNA was kept vibrant?
Yeah. So we kind of lost our path in between, actually, right? So we did it right in the beginning, early on, but then as a team, the business, everything started scaling, right? Like you rightly said, I don't want founders to take credit or whatnot, but when we started losing sight of that,
and I think a lot of founders here will correlate with the fact that they have butterflies in their tummy as when I have to give it up to somebody else to take this function, how will they take care of it?
So customer success kind of got out to the wayside a little bit in between, which is why 3 months back the theme, I brought this theme back, right? Make customers delighted again, right? That's our theme right now. To emphasize that, and it's not just customer success, it's everybody, right? The product managers need to be thinking that way, right? Marketing needs to be thinking that way, sales needs to be thinking that way, ops needs to be thinking that way, people ops, right? Neha, when she's going and finding talent, she needs to be thinking like that, right? So we still haven't hired headers. So what we have done is we have the founder's office, right? So we have a few people in the founder's office. So Sam is one of them, right? And there are many problems, right? So then they end up working on those problems, or they end up becoming the head of a function, build the processing, scale the function, and then hire the head of the function, that type of thing. So right now we don't have a head of customer success, right? I mean, we have in name we have, but we really don't have it. Right? So it's a team of, I would say, individual contributors who are very, very good. These are like the best. Right? The other day I just wrote their names down, and they are best at this. So one of the things that, so some of the go lives recently we had, hiccups, right? It's like, hey, what the hell is going on, right? Like, why is this happening? So I wrote down, okay, who are our best customer success people? Are they part of these, right? So I made a new rule. If a contract is more than 25 lakhs MRR, one of these 6 people, so I call them the crack team. A lot of people don't know about, like, even our team doesn't know about it. Right? So this is just between me and Priya and the founders of this, right? So we call them the crack team. So one of these 6 from the crack team has to be involved in the go live process if the contract value is greater than 25 lakhs. So just randomly put that number on there, right? Because we just can't afford to. So Aditya Birla, right? So when we were going live with Aditya Birla, hugely important logo for us. And because I knew this was so important, I said, Arjun, like the co-founder, right? I said, Arjun, you personally manage this, right? So he came back into the scene and he did that. Obviously that's not the way to scale, but yeah. So we have a great customer success team, but we still have to scale it, get the right kind of leadership, and so on and so forth. It's still, even today, like the founders are involved in that process. Right?
So for these 6 people, what is the primary metrics that you track and incentivize them on?
See, they are, retention is the only metric for them, right? In addition to that, we add things like customer testimonials. Can you get, how many customers can you get to come and put their name on our product, right? So I think those are a couple of, retention is the key thing. It's like, it drives 80%, right? Can you get testimonials, right, Sam? Is there anything else? They also have expansion, right? Expansion is part of their metrics, right? So there is, our North Star metric is all about, not even contracted revenue, it's billing, right? How much have we billed, right? It's, I know TJ is not happy about it, but it's in TJ's OKRs, it's in the product managers, it's in everybody's OKRs, right? So TJ is not just a great product manager, she's like excellent at selling as well, right?
How did you go about finding your first paying customer?
Our first customer itself was a paying customer. So it was just, hey, industries are not very efficient, and there is machine learning, right? How do you take machine learning and solve this problem? And for us, it was, how do you take AI and help them reduce their energy and water footprint? That was the first thing that we thought about. So first, and then we quickly, when we started talking to customers, we figured out that that wasn't front and center for them. So we quickly pivoted to, we can improve your productivity, we can save on your raw materials, we can help you keep your quality consistent, those kinds of things, right? Which they were interested in. So our first customer was right here in Pune, Padamji, which is a plant about 20 minutes drive from here. So Padamji, so all the masks that 3M sells, actually Padamji makes those, right? They also make they make a lot of hygiene products, tissue, diaper, sanitary, the paper that goes into that, right? Padamji actually makes that. So there was a person who was a CEO, Lika, right? So even though he was in his 70s, right, he was very pro-tech, and he was like, so he gave us our first. So we got lucky also, right? Somebody who's here in Pune, we sort of developed the product with Padamji, even though we didn't give them any commercial benefit. Obviously, they got a great price, right? Being the first customer, they got a great, and the ROI they got was insane, right, for what they spent, right? Even today, the first Alexa, did we replace it? Yeah, the very first Alexa, which I went and wired there, is still running there. That was like from 5 years ago. Right, so there's 2 Alexas there. So the question was,
How do you get the first client?
Yeah, so we, so even before we register the company, right? So Arjun and I, with PowerPoint, we just started roaming all over, right? To all these interesting places that I've been talking about. That we didn't have money, so we were like in trains and buses, and Red Bus was our friend, right? So we're just going and visiting as many customers as we could, just pitching our idea, right? We didn't tell them that we had even, the company did not exist, right? Obviously. We're like, hey, yeah, the product exists, the company exists, now you're interested, right? So we went and spoke to many people, different segments, out of the logo, we're large customers. Not many large customers because we wouldn't even get an appointment with the larger customers, right? And to get what they call a gate pass into a client itself is super hard. That's very hard. So it was Lika, right? So we just got lucky that we met this guy, Lika, who was like super excited about what we were building. And since he was the CEO, he was the top guy, he was like, guys, I need this, like work with these guys. And then his head of R&D, Tendulkar, he worked with us. Tendulkar is still there. So that's, so I mean, there was a lot of luck in it, right? But we built something, so when we, so like you asked me, how did you imagine it, right? So it was like, there had to be a physical part of the product, right? Edge computing did not exist at that time, so we built our own edge, right? And a lot of things, as we start building, then we figure out somebody just launch it, but then we are like 80% into the building of this. Sometimes that happens too, right? So now HP has like edge computing and stuff like that, but in 2017, there was nothing off the shelf we just get, right? So basically, an edge computing device has been, it has memory, it has processing. It's just a simple motherboard that's but it also, because we built our own edge computing device, we customize it to our use case, which is talking to all kinds of different devices. Right? There are this very ancient things that run in the plant that use a communication technology called 4 to 20 million. Right? So we have to talk to 4 to 20 million models. So there are different communication protocols, right? So we kind of built all that. A lot of it was dumb luck also, right? At that time, we didn't do the kind of deep research that DJ does now, right? It was like one 15-minute Google search, couple of phone calls, and okay, this makes sense, this is cool, right? Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you. So I have one question. So you mentioned Patanjali was one of your early adopters, early customers, and then there must have definitely been significant improvements in your product. But the pricing also would change with that. But how do you retain your old customers and get them upgraded to the new product and still maintain the pricing and the ROI, the investment you do on those improvements?
Yes. So they, all the upgrades in the product, especially the product that's on the cloud, they get by default. Right now we've started building some features that we may not give to everybody, right? But the core functionality, whatever upgrades you've done, we've just been getting it, right? We've gotten, so great question. We've actually gotten, so we've been live at Patanjali since 2017. April 2017 is when we went live. February is when we registered the company, right? So April is when we went live at Patanjali. And I think we've at least got 2 rounds of price increase from Patanjali since then, right? And it has not been based on, hey, Patanjali, give us more price because we're giving you all these new features, or it's not been, hey, if you want these new features, it's not $1,000 per month, it's now $1,500. That's not the conversation. The conversation has always been, this is what Elixir did for you last quarter, last year. Can you give us this 15% price increase? Can you make it well? Oh yeah, sure. End of conversation. So if you're talking about value delivered, so that's the advantage, right? So we can talk about past value delivered. it becomes a much easier conversation.
So my question basically revolves around adoption and usage. You said that these are the two main points that you need to ensure to retain your customers. But in order to do that, you need to engage them effectively. So what are some best practices that you follow, especially considering that I believe Haber has like a lot of high touch engagement processes. So can you share some idea?
So one thing is the customer success team itself, right? Like I said, we're still brute forcing our way through some of these things, right? We definitely have to scale it up. So right now our rate of contract addition is on an average is about 5 a month. Okay, so it varies from at a low end it will be 3, at a high end it may be close to 10, right? And then the sizes of the contracts also vary, right? Sometimes we close like a very large enterprise type of customer. Mostly it will be smaller mom and pop type of factories, right? So we are still figuring out how do we scale and do the same consistent thing across the board. We've been lucky that these people have different expectations, right? An enterprise customer might expect everything in the contract to be real, right? Sometimes it's not. The small mom and pop customer might be like, I've gotten some benefit, that's all what I care about, right? I've gotten some ROI, that's it, right? They may not be very strict about everything in the contract. So one thing is our customer success team, but scaling that team, because we have like these ninjas who are in the customer success team, right? And scaling that kind of talent is very, very hard. Honestly, a lot of it is this brute force, right? TJ has some horror stories on adoption, right? We've literally sent somebody down there, sit with the customer, make them use it, right? Take them out for a beer in the evening, do all that, right? So, because we have the conviction that once they use it, they will love it, right? And that's step one, right? And then, how can you scale the distribution of that conviction? So yeah, we still haven't solved it, but the obvious way to do it is clear product segmentation, feature segmentation, customer segmentation, and then figuring out what kind of journey that will take this user through as they adopt the product, and how are you going to continue supporting it, and so on and so forth, right? These are like major things, right? Not the easiest things to solve. But we've just gone for those simple kind of solutions, right? Which is, let's remind the customer of the value we're creating, right? So even if they are like pissed off about something, they get this, giving flowers to your girlfriend, right? Even though you forgot the anniversary, right? So give the flowers so that the temper comes down, kind of situation. So you can think of these simple fixes that can hack into it, right? So one thing that I don't do New Year's resolutions, I just do them for name's sake. This year I made a bunch of resolutions. I don't remember all of them, but the one thing that I do remember that I'm doing is, I said, okay, now I'm going to talk to at least one customer every week, right? And the first 6 weeks of the year, I think I've been on the road for 3+ weeks, right? More than 50% of the day. So that itself, there's no rocket science that I can solve by sitting here and doing it, right? I can have much better impact being out there talking to the customers. And this is the BS that sometimes the VCs will feed you, right? And this happened to us back, right after our series. Like, oh, Vipin, you should not be selling anymore. You should hire a sales team. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, these guys have seen so many companies, so they must be right. So we did that. The stupidest thing that they can tell you. You should always be talking to customers. And if possible,
fly to where they are, have dinner with them, even if they're in the US or in Scandinavia or Japan or wherever, if you can afford it. Go there, talk to them, because there's nothing better than a face-to-face conversation. Have dinner with them, understand, get feedback, right? I mean, that's the most valuable thing that founders can do, right? Or CEOs of any company. I mean, where do you see CEOs like traveling? They sit in a freaking boardroom somewhere and they know nothing, right? About their customers. Where they just get fed a bunch of bullshit by the teams and they're like, oh, everything's good, right? Go see your customers, talk to your customers as much as possible, right? So simple things like that.